What's going on, guys? Long time no see, but it is Average Player YGO here. Sorry for the long hiatus. This is what I've been working on. I've told you guys I've been working on this for a while, but it is branded Despia, but it is a budget version, so there's no Guiding Clem and there's no Blazing Cartesia in here. Even though one card in my extra deck is for Blazing Cartesia, but that actually came up, and I will tell you about that in a little bit. So, you guys know how it goes. All the main stuff first, with the main deck, and then extra deck, and then side deck. We always go archetypal first. So we started off 3 versions of Albert the Justy Despia. Not 3 versions, 3 copies. Wow. Your main card, you always want to be able to see this card. Card's amazing. It's your main starter, your main one, but if you had the Clem and Cartesia, that also helps. Because they can also get you your plays much faster because of branded opening. Next card, and I've seen this played at 2, but I played at 3, Fallen Albaz, and I'm going to tell you this card came up a lot today. Because I went undefeated. The last person I played against was actually a tie. My buddy Tim, who also, if you guys see him down in the comments, which should probably be there, tell him what's up, because I'm going to thank him for helping me build this deck and giving me the different ideas of what I should do. So, 3 Fallen Albaz actually came up with a normal summon, used its effect to fuse something away, and I did it with his field. It was actually pretty good, because I used it to fuse this and Blazing Cartesia to go into the Gangrenol, which actually ended up killing him. And it comes up quite a bit, Fallen Albaz does, and I'll tell you a little bit about that card later when I get to another card. Our one of, the rest of our one of cards, between Destiny and Tragedy, Ad Libitum, Spriggan's Kit, and Albion the Shrouded Dragon. Tragedy's at 1, you really don't want to see it. It's good to use it as a fusion material from your graveyard, but I know some people play it at 2 and I don't. Ad libitum, you really don't want to see it. You play it at 1. I'm actually thinking about cutting this. Spriggan's Kit, it's good. It helps you, like, if you fuse and you know you need that little extra something, maybe you need to get, like your trap card, Branded Retribution, or like a Branded Loss, something like that. You can normal summon it and get it anyway. And then Albion, it's a recursion card. It counts as Fallen Albaz while on the field or in the graveyard. So they're all really good at what they do. Albion just allows you to basically dump a branded spell or trap, and then wherever you dumped it from, you set it to the bottom of your deck, and if you dumped it from your hand, you get the draw card. Next, we have an additional normal summon monster. Don't pay attention to that second one, but Keeper of Dragon Magic. This card actually showed up bonkers today, because you can add your branded fusion off of it, or an instant fusion, whatever one you want to add. Card's really good. It actually came up today with using this as well as branded opening. Branded opening got me my Albert to search out Branded Lost. Normal summon this, search it out for instant fusion, and basically just pop off, because none of my fusions are going to get negated at this point. Alright, and then we have a small Predaplant engine, 1 Orphoscorpio, 1 Darlingtonia, 1, not going to pronounce him, and 1 Biplisp, or Biblisp, whatever his name is. This actually came up today in a normal summon against Cyber Dragon, which got this. This comes up all the time. You want to play this at 1 because you want to search it out off of your fusion, and this is good because if you use it to fuse with Fallen Albaz, it gets you an extra card in your hand, which is going to be him. If you don't have a way to access your fusion. And then we got a few extra one-of cards that we play here. The Light Hex Sealed Fusion, Gimmick Puppet Nightmare, and Dark Magician. Hex Sealed Fusion here is used because I don't have Clem or the Cartesia, and I also don't have, because I don't have those, I don't have a Light Spellcast to be able to go into Albion the Shrouded Dragon. So I use this instead, and it actually does work pretty well with Gimmick Puppet and Nightmare and Dark Magician, basically for Dragoon. And this, I only drew this once, but I ended up returning to the bottom of my deck with Albion the Shrouded Dragon anyway, and getting a draw, which ended up actually drawing me into the card I needed. But what you can do is you summon out Albion the Shrouded Dragon. Past turn, your opponent's turn, you target Gimmick Puppet and Nightmare in your graveyard, and Fallen Albaz in your graveyard. You give your opponent Gimmick Puppet and Nightmare, and you give yourself Fallen Albaz. Gimmick Puppet and Nightmare will just resolve, saying that they can't special summon. And then Fallen Albaz will discard, diffuse the two together. So you make Lubellion. They can't special summon, but you can, and you're popping off on their turn. So that's why I have that there for. But you know me, it's not really a deck profile unless we got hand traps. We got 3 copies of Ash, which you know I basically run in all my decks. 3 copies of Ghost Ogre. This is a newer one. It actually came up against my buddy Tim, who went to use Blazing Cartesia and ended up ogring it because it got it off the field and he couldn't do his play, and I ended up OTKing him because he couldn't do it. 2 copies of Droll. These are basically just placeholders for Crossout Designator for whenever I get them back. I'm going to try to get them back. For my buddy, he has them. I'm going to try to get them back. Trade them for him. And then called by because I count that as a hand trap. Alright, next for spells. 3 Branded Fusion. Your bread and butter of the deck. Most decks don't like to play this. Or most decks don't like to rely on this. My deck actually had to a lot today. Branded Fusion came up absolutely freaking bonkers all the time. This with Branded Lost, you're basically just going unhindered and watching your opponent cry as you absolutely annihilate them. But it's one of the best cards in the deck. Any card that fusion summons using monsters from your deck is ridiculously broken. 3 copies of Branded Opening. So I did say that this was a budget build, and I was actually lucky to get these with the deck. And I know they've gone up in price quite a bit, but you do need to play 3 of these because you use it. It helps you get out your Albert without having to use normal summon. And if you have the Clem or the Cartesia, you could also summon that out instead. Branded Opening's really, really stupidly good. It's bonkers. And it doesn't discard for cost, just to let you guys know. It just discards for effect. So you can, if you, for some odd reason, are playing Dark Worlds, resolve those. And we got 2 more branded cards. Branded Lost. You want to play it 1 because you draw it. It's actually fine, but if you draw more than 1, it sucks. Branded Red, you have at 1 because if you draw more than 1, it's a brick. But Branded Red did not come up today. Branded Lost came up all the time. I searched this card once, set it, never saw it because my opponent scooped before I can even use it. So Branded Red is good. You just use one of it, though. And then Foolish and Instant Fusion are our last 2 spell cards. Foolish, in some cases, can end up being just ridiculous. You use Foolish Burial, you send your Predaplant, Predaplant Bib Lisp, or you use it to send Despia Tragedy. This way, you're basically 1-for-1 trading for a card added to your hand, whatever you want. And Instant Fusion is just used to get out your Predaplant level 5 fusion. And then Branded Retribution. This card never came up today. I actually didn't even see it. I saw it once, but I used it just to pitch off of an effect. So it's good for stopping stuff, but it's also good for resetting your branded spells and traps. So yeah, that's why I play it at 1. You can actually cut it if you don't want to play it, but that's a personal preference. I only play 1. Next is our fusions. We play 2 Albion and 1 Lubellion. This is just typical general build. Some people play 3 Albion, 1 Lubellion. Doesn't really matter. This is up to your personal preference, but this is what I play. Albion I played probably once today, and it was actually in the tie against my buddy Tim. Lubellion I played more than that. It was because it helped me get out the Sanctifier without having to use my other cards and actually banishing the cards that I don't really need. We play 2 copies of Mirror Jade because that's the norm. You don't play 3 copies of Mirror Jade because you need extra room for other cards. But 2 copies of Mirror Jade just in case someone ends up getting rid of 1 or whatever. You have 2 copies. It's ridiculously good, and it's a self card. You can use its self card effect once per turn, but every other turn. Once per every other turn. So you use its effect to banish. Say it leaves the field, comes back, you can use it again. Leaves the field, comes back, use it again to banish. So because when it leaves the field and comes back, it's a different card. 1 Albion, the Sanctifier Dragon. I called this, I think I called it shouted earlier, but Sanctifier. This came up with the Gimmick Puppet Lock. I did it twice in one game. Or not in one game, I did it twice in one match. My opponent was very, very salty, but this card ended up coming up really big. It is so good. Tax Dragon. We all know what this is for. It doesn't. I didn't even see it today. Didn't even play it. I really didn't. I didn't need no use for it because I won games that quick. Um, Quertus, this card I actually did not use today, but it is when I was using a texting against Karma, it actually comes up a lot with making monsters attack 0. Other than your cards. So you see where this comes into play. Really big swing, 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 swing. You're basically killing your opponent depending on what they got. Because their monsters attack 0, so it doesn't really matter. Titaniclad, it's only there to dump off of like Mirror Jade or this next one, Gangrenol, which as you saw, I don't have Blazing Cartesia, but I could also use the Hex Sealed Fusion to make Gangrenol, so it doesn't really matter. But I was actually going to use this with Felon Albaz and my opponent's Blazing Cartesia to make it, to OTK my opponent with it. This is a weird choice because I don't see very many people using this card. But Albalenidus to Abyss Dragon. You can use this combined with Despia and Quertus to swing, 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 because it can swing a lot of times. But you use multiple dragon monsters to make it, and that's how many times it attacks. So like, say I use like 2 Fallen Albaz and a Lubellion or whatever, right? A Fallen Albaz and then another Fallen Albaz and a Lubellion and an Albion, say. So that's 3 extra dragon monsters. And it gets 4 attacks because you use 1 material and then plus 3 extra. Swing, 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 swing. A lot of damage, clears them away. And their cards are all at 0 because of Quertus, but that's the main goal for this card. I haven't seen this today. I actually didn't make it at all. And it might go back for another card I might be testing out later. And it's also good because if you dump it, you get a fusion card at the end of your turn. Next is Garura. If you're not playing a fusion deck, if you're not playing Garura, this card's really good. I actually have the Super Poly and I just got it, which will end up going in the deck. But Garura ends up coming up pretty clutch. You actually can dump. Like, if you end up finding a way to dump a monster on your extra deck, Garura can just get you a free draw because it's just when it's sent to the graveyard. And as I told you about this card earlier, Dragoon, this card came up a lot earlier. I used it to pop a monster. My opponent took massive damage. And then swing for 4k because I used it to negate and all this other stuff. Came up really clutch. Super good card. I don't know why it hasn't been banned. And then there are 2 Predaplant fusions. I'm not going to try to pronounce this. I just call him level 5 Predaplant fusion. And he's good because he adds a Predaplant monster or a Predap spell or trap card from your deck or extra deck to your hand. So you basically use him to add your Pendulum and then do whatever. And then Drago is good because it just negates. And it actually turns out that it negates through leaving the field because, you know, it just says place a counter on that card. Any card with that counter is negated. But here's the side. I actually decided to try out 3 Dimension Shifter today. It actually came up. I played against Pearly and they could not play through this. Don't ask me how. They just couldn't. Next is 3 Dark Ruler No More. I did not see this card today. I did side it in against Tim, my buddy. I didn't even see it against him, and we still ended up going in time. But I wanted to see it, but I didn't. 1 copy of Herald of the Abyss, and I was thinking that this is a unique choice because I figured we're gonna have a lot of people there, and Branded is one really represented deck at my locals. To use this to get rid of a Mirror Jade or whatever problem card like a Dragoon or whatever it might be, because they can't activate their effects with that monster's name that's being sent to the graveyard. So, for once you don't know what this card does, pay 1500 LP, declare 1 monster type and 1 attribute. Your opponent must send one face-up monster with the declared type and attribute from their field to the graveyard if possible. For the rest of this turn, your opponent can activate cards effects with that monster's sent name. So, if you bait out Dragoon Negate, you just herald it, it's gone. You got rid of it. Or you use it on Mirror Jade, and this is the only card you have. Like, you use Mirror Jade, can't get rid of it, and Mirror Jade doesn't blow up your board. So, and it also doesn't blow up your board because Mirror Jade is your opponent's performing the game mechanic to send it to the graveyard. Next is Book of Eclipse. I played this card because I figured it's a fusion deck. You could fusion with face down cards, so I don't see why you can't play it. It's also very disruptive against decks that want to be able to XC and link because you have to use monsters that are face up on your field because face down knowns and those mechanics, but not fusion. It's weird. Side deck 2 Imperm. It's basically a swap between Imperm comes out for Drolls depending on what I'm playing against. Brightest Blazing Branded King. Now this card actually came up really clutch game 2 against Tim. I ended up really just not really having anything. Drew it, set it. He ended up baiting out a Dragoon Negate, and he baited out another. He baited out my Drago Negate, right? So I baited those out. Flip this, target my Lubellion, get rid of everything because it targets for cost or chooses for cost. No, it doesn't even do that. It just activates, and this is the last thing in chain. So I went negated everything. He couldn't play through it. I ended up at the end phase, added it back to my hand, fueled the Dragoon Negate, and was able to pop. And he couldn't really do anything about it. He scooped. We went to game 3. And now this card's kind of unique and different because I really like this card. I think this card has a lot of potential. I've heard a lot of bad things about this card. Nobody really likes it, but I'm playing Fusion Duplication. This card is actually really good. If people don't know what it does, target a fusion or poly, normal or quick play spell in either graveyard. Banish that spell, then apply that spell's effect when this card is activated. So in niche scenarios, you use Fusion Duplication, right? You banish a branded fusion or you banish super poly or instant fusion, wherever you may want it to be, even though instant fusion is only one trick pony in the deck. You use Fusion Duplication, banish one of them, and then you play on your opponent's turn using that card's effect. Like Super Poly, use it to Super Poly, fuse your opponent's cards away, except it can be interacted with because it doesn't take the conditions of the card with it. Branded Fusion, you send the cards from your deck to the graveyard to play on your opponent's turn. Now you guys see why I really like that card, and I think it's actually pretty neat. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. It's been a while since I've talked to you guys. So let me know what you guys think. Like I said, it's budget. Most of these cards, like D-Shifter, like this is probably like the Secret Rare is probably like $9. But other than that, Dark Ruler's a couple bucks. The Ultra D-Shifters are a couple bucks. Book of Eclipse are pennies. Infinite Impermanence is probably the most expensive card on the side. Not really very many of these cards in the extra deck are expensive except for Albion. He's like $15. And Dragoon is still a couple bucks. But other than that, you can still build the deck, I'm pretty sure, for around $30. If you have any of the Predaplant cards, which you probably should, it's good. So, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Drop a like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.